Hi, this is Jen, and I have Steve Young in the background for a minute. And this is our Mother's Day show in honor of our mothers. We're just going to do things a little differently today. Just going to have an informal chat, not about frugality, but in honor of our moms. I'm going to pull Steve up right here. Give me a second. Hey, Steve, thank you so much for being here. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm okay.
Hmm.
I've heard many sweet stories about Steve's mom. She sounded like an amazing person. And Steve was so fortunate to have actually spoken to my mom just a few years ago. And my mom thought very highly of you, Steve, just needless to say. And I want to personally thank you. What was it that my mother, do you remember offhand? She always had a question for you about a certain food. Do you remember that offhand? Just wondering.
I do remember, and I must say, and I thought of a lot of your mom as well, even though it was just a small period. Um, the food I believe that you're trying to ask me about is something called an apple cream pie, and I do now. It hasn't been any time recent. I'm thinking it's been in excess of 30 years, maybe when I was like a young teenager or maybe preteen. I can't remember. But I do remember at one time eating some type of an apple cream pie. And it's really good. And the way that I had it is similar to how you would do like a strawberry cream or a banana cream pie. It was a similar. The only
Nice.
the only real difference is instead of you having, the banana or the strawberry, you had apple, you had I think there was like a vanilla custard in it, and you did have the whipped topping. So that's the version of apple cream that I had. I'm not really sure if it was the same thing that your mom had, but that's what I remember having, years
At
back.
least you had an answer for her about this because I never heard of it. She insisted upon it, and she always brought up, well, you know how older moms bring up wonderful stories. And by the way, anyone out there, please list the memory of your mom. If your mom is still here, that's wonderful. List a wonderful quality about your mom. If she's no longer here, list a wonderful memory. But Steve, you might remember my mom loved sweets, and nothing bothered her. I mean, she could have had a whole sweet store, and her blood test always came back normally. She never had an issue with high sugar or anything like that. It was just way too funny. But I remember a couple of innovative stories in reference to your sweet mom. If feel free to share, Steve.
Well, let me see. Um, okay. I'm trying to think of some stories about my mom. Okay. Well, my mom was another one that also liked I guess we're talking about sweets here, right?
Sure, if you'd
Okay,
like, or anything you want to mention.
okay, because I want to make sure I don't completely, get away
No
from my.
problem.
But with my mom, one thing my mom was always good about that she instilled in me is my mom was a fabulous cook. She taught me her spaghetti sauce recipe, which keep in mind, I've also tweaked it and modified it just a little bit. But I've made it so many different ways, it's not even funny. I can make it her way, I can make it my tweaked way. I've done it. If I told you how many different ways I've made spaghetti sauce over the years, it's too many to count. Um, I'm good at a I'm good at making Parmesan cheese omelets. Those are very good if you've never had one.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
the only thing I never learned how to make, I would have loved to have learned from my mom. She had an excellent recipe for a fish soup. It
Oh,
was absolutely off the chain, is all I can tell you. It was delicious. It was flavorful. No, it wasn't fishy, like like a bad odor fish. It didn't have anything like that. It just all the flavors married when my mom made it. So,
that's awesome.
but I never learned how to make that recipe. I wish I had. I mean, if I ever want to learn how to make a fish soup, all I've got to do is go to the internet and look up, from hundreds and thousands of different ones and just, close my eyes and point and pick one.
Right.
But that was a recipe I would, but basically, you know, my cooking skills definitely come from her. And then when I got to where I learned how to cook and liked cooking, which I do, then I kind of, incorporated my own thing onto it. So,
Oh,
yeah,
I love that. That's so sweet. Steve, do you remember? I mean, you remember because we're friends long enough that you might remember this. Do you remember hearing my mom singing in the background?
I do. Yeah.
Oh my
And if
gosh.
you remember, I specifically told you how melodious and how pretty it sounded. Uh,
Yes, you did say that. Thank you.
so yeah, you know, she definitely had one of those voices of female singers like you heard back in the 1950s.
Yes.
Like, oh gosh, the one song. Who am I trying to think of? The one that did Allegheny Moon. Anyway, like I'll just go this route with it. Like Georgia Gibbs. Let's see, who else am I trying to think of? Georgia Gibbs, K Star is another
Oh
one.
wow. Thank you.
Your mom definitely had that. For right now, my memory escapes me, but the one that did Allegheny Moon, I'm pretty sure. Um,
Oh, that's awesome. I'll check on that. I appreciate
actually,
that.
actually, if it's all right, while I'm talking to
Yeah,
you,
sure. I
I'm
just
going.
want to mention something. My mother belonged to the church choir. So when she was growing up as a child, she, devoted lots and lots of Sundays to choir and, choir practice during the week in her parish. And then, came over to this parish here and then put in another X number of years, singing here. So for my mom, singing, she always said this: singing is twice praying. And she sang from her heart. And
Yeah,
just
she did. She
thank
did.
you so much, Steve. I'm so glad you remember that. I
Oh,
really
I do.
appreciate it.
And I did have to sneak over to YouTube, and I would have never have I could have sat here for 10 minutes. It would have not come to me. Patty Page is her name.
Ah, yes,
While I'm on the subject
you
of
nailed
50,
it. Thank you.
you're welcome. While I'm on the subject of 50s female singers, another one you could add to it is Joan Weber and Teresa Brewer. Since I'm in
Beautiful,
that, like I said, when it comes to music, like I said, the 50s is always going to be my top. Like
beautiful.
the 1960s is for you. That's how the 50s was for me. And keep in mind, I 1959 is 15 years after I was born. So,
I know.
you know, but I just adore that time. Just, you know.
It was a sweet time. I mean, I was alive in this world, but of course I don't remember it because I was like pretty much an infant. But Steve, your mom was a huge musical influence on you.
Okay. She was, and I'll tell you one specific type of music. And a lot of people spoke very poorly about it. People still talk poorly about it. As a matter of fact, if you think back to the 1979 World Series, not that I'm trying to get sports oriented here, but this actually happened. They burned every single disco record that ever came out. Now, because of my mom, even though there were other types of music as well, I definitely got my disco influence from my mom. She was into that type of music because, she used to like to go back in the late 70s. She used to like to go to discotheques. That's what they were called overseas.
Right.
Um, so that's, but I do get other types of music from her as well, including my father. But that's another thing, because I do come from a musical family. I'm not saying play instruments type thing, but hearing music as I was coming up. My mom, my dad, my sister, they were all, an influential part on me. And then when I
Amazing.
got to be, and then when I got to be old enough, probably in the early 80s sometime, I started listening to, all of the 80s, on my own, so, but I would have to say that she would definitely be you know, an influence on me. But the disco, I know a
And
lot of
so
people.
pretty. I mean, I saw so many pictures of your mom. Absolutely beautiful lady. Very,
Yeah,
very sweet.
yeah, thank you. And she, like I said, I would say the disco, even though a lot of people still think poorly of it, but people don't realize disco was the foundation of a lot of other music to follow. You had your post disco, you had your high energy, your house music,
True.
all your Euro dance, Italo disco, all of these different little offsprings all revert back to the disco. So people don't realize disco's like the grandfather of all the rest, or the great grandpa, however you want to look at it. So
You are so musically knowledgeable, and I know, of course, regarding your dad, his huge influence with music on you as well, and that I'm sure was part of this increasing love affair of music. Steve, I'll never forget. I mean, just to allude to this for a minute, your live show, I don't know, a few weeks back, you were just like cranking out all the musical information. I mean, the time went by so fast, but yet it was a period of time with just musical information. Thank you for that show. Oh, by the way, if you never heard of the Steve Young 74 channel, please head on over there. Steve has a ton of videos. They are of random nature, but the good news is you'll never get bored. But there is something that happens every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. What's that, Steve? Right? What show is
well,
that?
yeah, every Tuesday at 6 a.m. I put up some type of recipe at random. And do keep in mind, from week to week to week, I don't always know ahead of time of what I'm going to put up. And I'm giving myself away. I have been known to record my videos Monday evening. I mean, there are times that I'll definitely do a little bit of research, sometimes depending on how my schedule goes. But yes, sometimes Monday evenings, I'll record my video to have it set up to go off Tuesday morning. And I don't, and again, it's random recipes. I don't know what I'm going to do. I do this. What I do is I look through the internet. It can be a personal recipe. The last one I did was a personal one that I know how to do, two different variations of it. For those that that like lentils or don't, if you have not tried them, they're very good. They're delicious and they're inexpensive,
And
budget.
a recent video was influenced by your mom's recipe regarding lentils.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. So head on over to that recipe if you've not seen of it or heard of it. That would be a great thing to do. I like that your channel is random, Steve. You cannot get bored. It's not like just all, one
yeah.
old thing, Yeah.
I
You
mean,
said, go ahead.
why do you want to? Okay, this is a good example, and I'm sure since you mentioned music, do you really want to sit there and listen to Arlo Guthrie's greatest hits again and again and again and again? No, not me. I would like to throw a little Led Zeppelin in, maybe a little Kansas, maybe a little Boston. Yeah, I know Bad Company. Yeah, I know I'm talking about 70s rock groups, but no. What I'm basically saying is mix it up, mix it up. I mean, you don't want to listen to you don't want the same old song and dance
No,
again.
it's true. I absolutely, totally agree with you. And even different formats, like sometimes we'll do an audio show. Steve has an audio version of his show at times. I have an audio version of my show at times. Kind of mix it up because otherwise it could get a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit on the repetitive side. So, Steve,
Either
you said, go ahead.
either well, repetitive. I was going to say stagnant, but
Yeah, yeah, pretty
because
much. Steve mentioned a very nice commentary about moms in general, about the jobs that the role of a mom. You said that a short time ago. Would you mind mentioning that again? I
No.
really would appreciate that.
Okay. I mean, first off, I've always been somebody who's pro woman. Do keep in mind, my mom. I'm going to describe my mom to you. Uh, she was a strong personality. This is a heck of a combination. This is really the only way I know how to describe my mom. She was a cross between Sophia on the Golden Girls and Judge Judy. Now, the Judge Judy that I'm speaking of is not when Judge Judy was on the bench. I'm talking about like if she's away from the bench, like in an interview, her style, her demeanor, the way she comes across, not in the courtroom, but away from it. So I grew up with a strong personality mom. Therefore, I've always been a fan of women that are strong. For example, I'll tell you a few shows like Julia Sugar Baker on Designing Women. That was a strong character. Dixie Carter. She was, Felicia Rashad on The Cosby Show. She was a strong character. Many may or may not see it. Let's see. Not the Golden Girls, but I'm going to quote another TV show in relation, but further back. Okay, B. Arthur is Maude. Okay, Maude was a strong personality. So that would be another one. And then I guess the only other one I can think of in addition would be Louise Jefferson off the Jefferson. She was considered a strong character, I always thought. But that's how, and that got instilled in me. And I think that's how, because of her, and then of course my father being, he being the way he was, being in the military and growing up in that atmosphere with a military father, and then my mom having that type of demeanor, everybody always asks, "Oh, Steve, it sounds like you grew up in a strict household. I bet you had to walk a straight line." No, not really. I mean, not really. I mean, I just, all I know is, my parents loved me and cared for me. They wanted
That's
to,
it.
but I wouldn't say, walk a straight line. Of course, if I did something wrong or fell out of line, of course, I got a spanking for it, things like that. So, and am I glad by how I turned out? Absolutely. Would I want any other parents to raise me? No, I would not. I like the way I turned out.
Absolutely.
If I turned out so wrong, how come I'm liked by pretty much everybody I meet?
There you go.
I have a likable personality. So
I agree. You know something, Steve? I've actually, especially since my mom, went home a couple of years back. This is my third Mother's Day without my mom, because the first one literally happened like a couple of weeks after she passed. So she passed in April. Then I got smacked with Mother's Day immediately. A matter of fact, she died on Easter weekend. So she died on the day before Easter, which we call Holy Saturday in my church. And the next day is Easter. So right off the bat, a couple of holidays already knocked out of the park. But it's never simple. It's never simple. So I just choose to celebrate my mom's life, and I'm so grateful. And I often say this, Steve, if I had to have two parents from God that God picked out for me, I'm sure glad it was the ones I got.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Exactly. And please, everyone, feel free to share your memories of your mom. And then on Father's Day, we're going to do another tribute. We'll figure out which channel, but we love to do it. Well, Steve, I want to thank you so much for sharing. I know it's just the tip of the iceberg on both of our parts for our moms, but there's only so much time in a day.
Yeah, I know.
So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm going to close out the show and give you a wave. Have an amazing, fantastic day, and happy Mother's Day. Thanks again, Steve.
You're welcome. Happy Mother's Day.